Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I am mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too. We're up to our last story in the tales of the Jewish tradition, and I always like to say that Jews and Judaism are not necessarily the same, because you can be immersed in the cultural aspect of Judaism and not be an Orthodox observer. Nonetheless, I want to share, before we go into the last story today, called The Holy Miser. I'm really concerned that people don't understand that they're bleeding from self inflicted wounds. I know that pain is part of the price of living, but because the mind has a negativity bias, it's always looking for what's wrong. But if you only focus on what's wrong, you have to learn to nudge yourself into a wider perspective to find out what's right. Because if pain is inevitable, but suffering is an optional. So you have to learn, how do you pour water on the fuel, on the fire, that increases the amount of suffering that you have because you're not paying attention to your responsibility. And so what is the responsibility? To look for reasons to feel good, to find out what's life-giving in this moment. And that's our affirmation for today, this moment. Being alive means now, right here. And how do you find vibrational alignment with the things that are important to yourself, with the spiritual principles that really ought to guide you at an individual level? So part of it is learning to take your attention away from where you have been. Not that you can't learn from that, but put your attention to where you want to go. Make that your point of attraction, and then the law of attraction, as you know, will help that to be more. Now, a really important part of this is realizing that spirit is who we are in an embodied form. Spirit is always with us, even though we may be unaware of its influence or impact on us, or we forget for the moment that that's the fact. Spirit is everything. That's why they say offering God second place is offering God no place, because everything in form is nothing but a manifestation of the Creator, slowed down light, you could say. And so it's really a matter of practicing. They say music isn't music while it's on the sheet. It has to be played to make it alive. An acupuncturist doesn't work on dead bodies. You have to practice on a living person. So that's where we have to not only do the practices to make them come alive, because there's no magic except that each practitioner in any given generation puts their energy into it, makes it enthusiastic, and then revivifies it. But I also want to make this comment about the relationship between Judaism and yoga, and I'm sure we could do this with other systems, but since we're doing the Jewish thing this week, I'm going to do that. You know, in yoga, they talk about the definition of Kriya Yoga as tapas, swadhyaya, and ishvara pranidhan, a path of action, a path of study, and a path of devotion. So in the same way, these have parallels in both systems. Certainly we understand that in the Jewish tradition, studying the Torah and supposedly the divinely revealed word of God, that's an important aspect of how your spiritual life unfolds, by attuning yourself to what it says in the scriptures. Well, in yoga, it's the same thing. Studying the Upanishads, or the Gita, or the Yoga Sutras, or the Vedas, and aligning yourself with what the sages, the ancient wise people, the rishis had to say, it's exactly the same. You immerse yourself in the Holy Writ, and it attunes you and aligns you with wisdom. But that's not good enough. You also have to realize that you demonstrate your understanding of what you got from the holy books by how you live your life, by your actions. And of course, in yoga, that's called karma yoga. You offer everything to the divine, and you do good works. You show the joy of devotion through good works. And in the Jewish tradition also, it's called mitzvahs, doing good deeds. Here's 14 works of mercy as they're delineated by the Old Testament. This is really outrageous. Notice these actions are stuff that's something that you do. It's not just sentimental feelings you have about these issues. This is from Isaiah 58, verses 6 through 8. Feed the hungry, clothe the naked, shelter the homeless, ransom the captive. From Genesis 24:18, give drink to the thirsty. From 2 Kings 8:29, visit the sick. From Samuel 31:11, bury the dead. From 2 Chronicles 17:7, instruct the ignorant. From Isaiah 37, verse 6 to 10, counsel the doubtful. From Samuel 15, verse 16, admonish the sinners. From Samuel 15, verses 5 to 14, bear wrongs with patience. Genesis 45, 1 through 5, forgive offenses willingly. Jeremiah 45, verse 1, comfort the afflicted. And Genesis chapter 18, verse 22 to 33, pray for the living and the dead. Clear things to do, not just to think about, not just to empathize with, but to get out there, boots on the ground, and do your selfless service. And then finally, of course, is devotion. You could say all of Judaism is about loving God with all your heart and all your soul. And certainly in the Indian scriptures, the whole idea is the surrender to the divine, offer everything to divine. If you can't just do it in meditation and completely slip out into the mystic oneness, then the whole idea is act in the world in such a way that you offer that as your sacrifice to the divine, sacha facere, make it sacred and offer it to the divine. Really nice parallels, so I'll leave you with that so that you'll keep your actions in the world, your study, and your devotion all within the similar path. It doesn't matter if it's Judaism or yoga, you basically get the idea. Be a good human being, be a mensch, do the right thing, help out. A lot of people are bleeding out there, and you have the capacity to help, so do it. Anyway, here's our story for today called The Holy Miser. Once upon a time, in a very, very small and impoverished community in Eastern Europe, there was a miser. And you don't get to be a miser because you give your money away. You get to be a miser because you never use your money. And he was the only person in this town that had any money. But he never gave it to help out anybody. So, of course, he wasn't very well liked. In fact, not only wasn't he very liked, but when he would pass by in the streets, the kids would throw stones at him and curse him. And that is really a no-no in the Jewish tradition, not to respect other people, but to curse them right to their face. Oh, really bad form, but that's how it was. Nonetheless, he got sick and he was about to die. And so the burial society came to him and said, Moshe, listen, give us 200 rubles, we'll bury you nicely, and then we'll give the rest to the community. He says, no, I'll give you 50 rubles. Listen, Moshe, you can't take it with you. Give us the 200 rubles. And he says, listen, I said I'd give you 50 rubles. That's all I'm offering. Moshe, if you don't give us 200 rubles, we're not going to bury you properly. He says, oh, you're threatening me? I did a lot of things myself by myself. I'll bury myself. Oh, it was like really like a showdown, the détente. Okay, they were adamant, and Moshe was adamant. That's how it went. And he died. And they didn't bury him. And that is really another kind of a no-no, a real sin in the Jewish tradition. You're dead, bang, zoom, right in the ground, quick, that's it. But they didn't help him. So the first day went, and then the second day went. And by the third day, there was no formaldehyde here. There was no like whisking the body away to some funeral home where they're going to dress it up and put chemicals in it so it doesn't start rotting right in front of you. But by the third day, it was already starting to stink. Now, one of Moshe's neighbors, under the cover of dark, had compassion on his wife and children, and so slipped in without letting anybody else know and took the body out and put it in the cemetery in the unmarked graves site, which is another kind of no-no, not to memorialize anybody with a stone or something like that, but that's what happened. Into the ground, that's how it was. So things seemed to go along the way they normally do in this town where everybody was poor as church mouse. And then that Friday morning, the morning of Shabbos, the head rabbi is sitting in the studio and there's a knock on the door. Come in. First little yid comes in. Rabbi, you got to help me. I have nothing for Shabbos. You have to help me. He says, please, please relax. So he goes to the pushka, the little can that people use for tzedakah, for charity. When you go in the stores, you put it in there, and then that way they try to help the poor people. Even if you have just a kopeck, a little cent, 1 cent, put it in. The widow's mite, put it in. And the rabbi says, what is this? You need, so how much do you need? He says, I need 10 rubles. 10 rubles is enough for me to have a nice Shabbos, and then I could live on it for me. He says, don't worry, I'll take care. He gives him the 10 rubles. No. Have a good Shabbos. 10 minutes later, yeah, come in. Rabbi, you have to help me. I'm a water carrier. I have no money. I'm so poor. I have 6 children. I'll never be able to deal with Shabbos or the week. Can you help me? He says, oh, how much you need? I need 15 rubles for the week. He says, don't worry, I'll give it to you. So he gives him the 15 rubles like this. Then one after the other, all the Jews in town come into the rabbi and more or less tell him the same story. The rabbi's pretty smart. So he says to one of them, let me ask you a question. Did you ever go to Moshe and ask him for money? He says, this is a strange story I have to say. One time I thought to myself, maybe if I go and ask him nicely, we can melt his heart of stone. And so I went to his house one day. I knocked on the door. I opened the door, and you should have seen him. He had like this angelic light all around his body. He invited me in. We sat down. He served me some tea. He served me some cake. He asked me all about my family, how I was doing, how much money I needed for Shabbos. And I thought, oh my God, God is opening his heart. God is really turning him around. Oh, this is fantastic. And so when he asked me, so how much do you need for Shabbos? And I said, well, I need 20 rubles to reach. And I said, so you're going to give me the 20 rubles? And he says, he turned into a madman. I never saw such a change like this. He said, give you 20 rubles. What do you think? I'm nuts? Get out of here. I didn't become a miser by giving my money away. Oh, I hated him at that moment. Now the rabbi understood the whole thing. He called the whole congregation together. He says, we made a terrible mistake. Moshe was not a miser. He was a holy miser. He just didn't want anybody to know. We have to fast from this Shabbos to next Shabbos and go to the cemetery and pray for forgiveness. So the whole town listened to the rabbi. And they went there and they prayed and nothing was happening. So now the rabbi said, well, forget it. I got to go into some deep Kabbalistic meditation here. And so he goes into it, he chants his mantra, and all of a sudden he swoons away and he has a vision. And now he's transported to heaven. And there he is with Moshe. He says, Moshe, please, I'm so sorry. We didn't know. We didn't realize that all those years you were supporting everybody. He says, it's okay, Rabbi. I didn't want anyone to know. I wanted the one who is the only one to know. And the rabbi said, Moshe, you're unbelievable. So let me ask you a question. Is it good? Is it good where you are? So I say, you're kidding me? It's Gan Eden. It's heaven. It's fantastic. It's just great. But one thing I don't understand, how is it possible for you all those years to be able to support us without any help? What do you mean without any help? Every step I took, I had Solomon by my side. I had Judith by my side. I had Abraham by my side. I had Sarah by my side. I had Isaac by my side. I had Rebecca by my side. I had Jacob by my side. I had Joseph by my side. I had the matriarchs and patriarchs with me every single step of the way. The rabbi says, Moshe, you're unbelievable. But you know, Rabbi, I have to tell you something. What's that? Even though I'm in heaven, there's still something that I miss. What's that? It's that feeling that I used to get every Friday morning when I would put a little envelope underneath each person's door that said L'Kavod Shabbos, in honor of Shabbos. So I guess do it while you're here. I guess I'll have to do it while I'm here, because when you're gone, you won't have the opportunity. So may you all be as generous, loving, kind, sweet, wise, funny, compassionate as you possibly can. Do it while you're here.